Hey guys, chapter 3 of the wonderful Sam Silver Undercover Pirate, the Sea Monster. Sam's jaw dropped open in amazement. He had no idea that sea monsters existed 300 years ago. Sea monsters big enough to devour a pirate. Although it was terrible that Jem's shipmates had nearly been eaten by such a beast, Sam couldn't help feeling a little bit curious. He'd love to see a sea monster, from a safe distance of course. It would be like spotting the Loch Ness Monster or a T-Rex. But the rest of the Seawolf crew didn't sound quite so keen. "We should get far away from here as possible," said Ned. French treasure ships or not. There was a chorus of ayes from the men behind. "The creature may have had a hankering for French food and eaten the treasure fleet too," said Ben, eyeing the waves nervously. Captain Blade stood pulling at the braids in his beard as he studied Jem. "Take your time," he said, "and tell us exactly what happened." Jem gulped. "Well, we were making for Jamaica with a fine haul of gold, when the monster suddenly reared out of the ocean, its arms waving above us. It was like a giant octopus. Those wicked tentacles tore at the sails, and all the while it spat its ghastly ink at us." "It's you who's going mad, Peter," declared Ben. "One man against a whole crew." "Aye," piped Fernando. "Where's the blood? And how did he make those holes in the hull?" added Harry Hop. "And spill all that ink?" "There's no treasure in the hold," said Fernando, "so either that monster took it, or he's lying about that too." "I believe his tale's true," said Blade firmly. He looked around the stricken ship. "There's nothing more we can do here. The Truro won't stay afloat for much longer, I'll warrant. We'll get under way. The creature from hell could be lurking somewhere below, so we must put as many miles as we can between the Seawolf and certain death." "Aye," said Ben Hudson, rubbing his beard anxiously. "I've no wish to meet a giant octopus that eats men and treasure." The crew jostled to be the first along the wooden bridges back to their ship, their eyes shifting uneasily over the ocean. As soon as the planks had been heaved all aboard, Harry shouted the order, "All hands on deck, full sails to the west." He turned to the captain. "Let's make for Hispaniola. The nearer we are to land, the safer we'll be, by my reckoning." Blade nodded and took the wheel. "You're right, Harry. I don't want to be the monster's next meal, though part of me would like to go hunting for it." The crew shouted in protest. "Settle down," said the captain with a grim smile. "I'll not risk our lives for that beast." "Shall I go back to the crow's nest?" Sam asked. "No, lad," said Blade. "Give Ben a hand with the cannon. We need to be ready for action in case it appears again. Harry, station the men along the rails to keep watch. The closer they are to the water, the quicker they will spot the fiend." Sam dashed up and down the steps to the gun deck, carrying kegs of powder to place next to each cannon. As soon as they were primed and ready, and ran to join Fernando and the crewmen, who were anxiously waiting for signs of the creature, he looked out over the sea. The waves sparkled in the bright sunlight, and the wind sent light clouds drifting towards the blue sky. It seemed impossible that a sea monster could be lurking by. "I think we may be safe, my friend," Fernando told Sam. "Surely the beast would have attacked us by now." "Aye," agreed Ned. "Perhaps one ship's crew was enough to fill its belly. It's probably long gone." Sam couldn't help feeling disappointed. He could just picture the monster looming into view, rearing up for the attack, then cowering back at the sight of the brave Captain Blade and his fearless band. The men of the Seawolf would banish it from the Caribbean. Something caught his eye, and he stifled a gasp. What was that dark shape moving beneath the surface? He couldn't see anything now. It must have been a shadow of one of the clouds above. Then, to his horror, the water below the bows began to bubble and heave. It looked as if the sea was boiling in a witch's cauldron. A huge weed-covered body burst through the waves, squirting jets of dark liquid across the deck. Massive arms swayed in the air, one longer than the others, ended in a vicious claw like the pincer of a giant crab. The claw towered menacingly over the Seawolf. Chapter 4. The cold fingers of fear ran through Sam's body. He was face to face with the giant, man-eating octopus. Two of the armed creatures pounded the ship's side, making the Seawolf rock wildly. Overhead, the massive claw was opening slowly. Sam could see the white faces of his shipmates staring in terror at the hideous sight. Sinbad, the ship's cat, raised his hackles and howled, ready for a fight. I'm just going to show you the picture. "Fire!" yelled Captain Blade. "Loose the port cannon." For a moment it looked as though no one was going to obey. The crew seemed frozen to the spot. "Fire, I say!" thundered Blade. "Unless you want us to be swallowed up." The pirates leapt into action, setting fusees all to the cannon. Boom! The deafening sound thundered across the deck. The cannonballs hit the water close to the monster's body, sending the spray high into the air. The claw made a snap at the sails before the creature shrank back and began to sink below the waves. "Full sail!" ordered Blade. "We'll get away while we can." This time the crew were too quick to obey. "Heave ho!" shouted Harry as the crew tugged at the sheets, the ropes that could control the sails. "Put your backs into it." "We're doing our best," cried Charlie, "but nothing's happening." Harry threw a quick glance upwards. "Main sails flapping loose," he yelled. Sam could hear the fear in his voice. "That cursed fiend must have torn it from its fixings." "Then we'll not give it a chance to do more damage," said Captain Blade fiercely, his powerful arms heaving at the wheel. "Unfurl all the topsails. That will give us some speed. Sam and Fernando, go and repair the damage as quick as you can." "Aye, aye, Captain." Sam slung a length of rope over his shoulder and followed Fernando in a desperate scramble up the rigging. He could feel the sea wolf lurch beneath him as the crew worked to bring their round. Messed that right up. He could feel the sea wolf lurch beneath him as the crew worked to bring her round and make their getaway. The sails flapped and the sheets creaked in their pulleys. As they reached the mainsail, they could see it hanging loose from its wooden yard. "It's a powerful beast," said Fernando, edging out onto the yard. "If it comes back before we've got the sails working, I fear we'll meet the same fate as the Truro." Sam looked down. The water was calm now. "Somewhere under there it could be waiting for us," he thought with a shiver. "Perhaps we've scared it off," he said, trying to sound hopeful. Fernando muttered something in Spanish. Sam couldn't understand the words, but he knew that his friend was frightened as he was. "Pass the rope," called Fernando. "I'll do a quick repair, but it will need more work when we have time." If we ever had time, thought Sam before he could stop himself. He knew he mustn't think like this. He saw Captain Blade at the wheel below, calmly giving his men orders. If he could be brave, then so could Sam. Excuse me. He crawled out towards Fernando with the rope. Then he lay flat on the yard, passed Fernando one end and hauled the loose sail up. Fernando began to thread the end of the rope through the holes in the sail. "All ship shape," came a squawk, and Crow landed next to Sam. "No, it's not," grunted Sam, holding on tightly to Fernando's rope. Crow peered at him for a moment and then scuttled off to the other end of the yard where he began chomping at the wood. The boys worked on in silence, dragging at the heavy, flapping cloth. It was almost ripped from their fingers by the gusting wind. But at last Fernando managed to tie the rope in a firm knot. He sat on the yard and punched the air. "Success!" he whooped. "Give me one of your high fives." Sam held up his palm. "Okay," he said with a grin, "but not too hard. Last time you nearly knocked me overboard." The boys smacked their hands together. "Mainsail secure, Captain," Sam shouted. And at that moment the ship lurched violently. "What was that?" cried Sam. But he already knew. The hideous monster was back. Its arms were thrashing against the sea-wolf's hull again, rocking her from side to side. The giant claw loomed over the deck as if searching for prey. Then it began to rise, tearing through the mainsail, as if it was paper. "Look out!" cried Fernando. "It's after us." "Make for the crow's nest," yelled Sam. He scrambled desperately up the rigging. Behind him, Fernando gave a sudden shout of terror. Sam turned to see the giant claw clamping itself like a vice around his friend. Fernando was clutching at the mast with all of his strength, but the creature was just too powerful. Before Sam could get to him, the claw had torn him away. "No!" shouted Sam. He couldn't let his friend be devoured by the monster. As the claw swung past, he leapt up at it and clung to the scaly pincers, trying desperately to force them open. "It's no good," gasped Fernando, pinned tight inside the claw. "Jump while you've got the chance." "No way," panted Sam. "I'm not giving up." The sea and sky whirled past Sam's eyes as a claw whipped him through the air. Then it stopped with a sickening jolt. Sam looked down. He wished he hadn't. The monsters gaping mouth lay waiting below. Inside, he could see a cavernous throat and the glow of a fiery belly. Suddenly the claw opened, and both boys were falling. Arms and legs. Arms and legs fighting in the air. Horrified, Sam closed his eyes. Any second now, he and Fernando were going to be eaten alive. Chapter 5. Sam and Fernando tumbled through the air into the hungry jaws. They landed with a jolt. Sam opened his eyes and gasped in astonishment. This was no monster. They weren't in a fiery belly. They'd fallen into a large cabin, lit by swinging lanterns. Sam's brain whirled as he tried to take in the strange surroundings. The air was hot, and it smelled terrible, even worse than the boys' changing room after football practice. In front of them was a high platform, like a foredeck. On it stood a ship's wheel with a brass octopus entwined around its spokes. Beyond that was a weird control panel, full of levers and handles, each one decorated with bright golden octopuses. Above it all rose a large window. Shoals of fish were flitting past the thick glass. "We're under the sea," gasped Fernando. "It's a submarine," thought Sam in amazement. Through the window he could see his ship's retreating hull. Sam realised that Captain Blade and the crew had seen him and Fernando swallowed up by a monster. They probably thought the boys were dead, and, at this very moment, were sailing away as fast as they could, so they didn't share the same fate. There was no hope of a rescue. 2 pairs of strong, burly arms pulled them to their feet. Sam stared up into the scarred face of a brutish-looking man. "Don't try anything," he snarled in Sam's ear. A third man appeared at the top of the platform steps. This one was small and weedy, with a pale, pinched face and eyes that darted about. He wore a braided coat and a captain's hat with the brim curled up in front, as if to make him look taller. All his clothes were too big for him. "Nice of you to, drop in," he said in a thin, whining voice. "Welcome to the Octopode, my incredible underwater craft." "Craft?" said Fernando, bewildered. "But it ate us." Fernando's captor, an ugly thug with a shaven head, gave a sneering laugh. "This isn't a monster," Sam quickly told his friend. "It's a machine that can travel under the sea." "How is that possible?" spluttered Fernando. "I see you're impressed," said the little man. "And everyone else will be too when they hear of this fantastical beast. The Septimus Grind. The name Septimus Grind. That's me. Will be famous throughout the Caribbean." He flung his arms out dramatically, and soon throughout the world. "Thanks to this glorious invention, I will gather treasure where I choose. Nothing can stop me. I'll build a whole fleet of octopodes. No ship will be safe in the Caribbean. I will be the richest and most famous pirate that ever lived." "You're mad," cried Fernando, struggling to free himself. But the shaven-headed guard held him up in a vice-like grip. "On the contrary, boy," said Septimus Grind, "I am a genius. You're a witness in modern piracy at its best. This is 1706, after all, and not the Dark Ages. Why depend on the fickle wind to fill your sails when you can move unseen below the surface of the sea?" "But where's the engine?" asked Sam before he could stop himself. "I mean, how do you make your octopode move through the water?" "Oh, excuse me." "Why do you think I plucked you from the rigging?" said Septimus. Evil delight spread on his face. "I need manpower, of course." "But I can't see any oars," said Fernando, still looking dumbfounded. "And sails don't work under the sea." "Oars?" scoffed Septimus. "Sails? Don't be so foolish. The octopode is driven by propelling paddles. You can't see them from here. They're on the outside of the hull and powered by my amazing capstan here in the cabin. Show them, men." The boys were forced to look around at a stout metal post in the centre of the deck. 6 wooden bars stuck out from the sides like spokes on a rimless wheel. A man was shackled to each bar, held captive by their leather wrist straps. 2 were slumped over the bars, and all of them looked half dead with exhaustion. "My amazing capstan is attached to a complicated series of cogs and axles under the deck, Septimus went on. The axles are joined to the propelling paddles. He poked a bony finger at the captives. When these lazy wretches turn the capstan, the paddles whirl around and my octopode moves more swiftly through the water. He let out a mad laugh. It means that we can travel faster than any sailing ship. Don't forget the ink, Captain Grind, called Fernando's guard. That's my favourite bit. It squirts out so that our victims think they've been attacked by a giant octopus. I was coming to that, Fry, snapped Septimus. Everything about my octopode is incredible. My adjustable spying pole, for example. His hand shot out to grasp the end of a long tube that hung down from the cabin roof, and he stared intently into a small hole in its side. His sharp nose and glinting eyes reminded Sam that of an evil bird of prey. The top always stays on the surface, no matter how deep we go. With a series of mirrors I can see my target, and it gives me a supply of lovely fresh air too. He let out a manic laugh. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ships will see the top. But no, it's cunningly disguised as an innocent seagull, bobbing merrily on the waves. Wow, thought Sam. He's invented a periscope. And my octopode is so efficient, Septimus went on, that it only takes 3 men to keep it running smoothly. 1 genius, that's me, and 2 trusty crewmen, whom you've already met. His eyes narrowed and stamped his foot. But we're wasting time. Cratchit, put these boys to work. Aye, aye, Captain Grind, said Sam's guard. Fry pushed Fernando aside and unbuckled the 2 slumped prisoners from the capstan. He dragged them across to a low-grilled door in the side of the cabin, threw them into a dark cell where the other men lay and slammed the door shut with a clang. Chuckling to himself, he turned the key in the lock and hung it on a hook on the wall. Sam shuddered. The cell was no more than a cubbyhole. The prisoners couldn't even stand upright. While Fry still had his back to him, Sam saw Fernando's hand moving stealthily to his belt. With one swift move, he had a knife up against Cratchit's throat. "Let my friend go," he cried. And now we have it. We're up to chapter 6. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys soon.